that's a blessing. But, obviously, we are told to prepare as believers, right? For what you may ask. And that is for when Jesus comes to bring us home, right? His second coming, right? So, this is going to be a lot of scriptures that everybody is, familiar with to some degree, right? And everybody's heard, no one knows the day or the hour when the Father comes, right? And that's in Matthew 24. So the great thing about Jesus, and it's a documentary that somebody donated, and we haven't watched it in Lord knows how long, but it's called The Rapture, and it's just basically talking about the parallels between there's a very specific way a Galilean wedding took place, right? And Jesus uses the Galilean wedding all throughout his scripture to kind of allude to, I'm going to be leaving you guys, but I'm coming back, right? He uses imagery from the specific Galilean wedding all the time, and I love this documentary. I'm going to try to dig it out and find it if, hopefully it's still there. But we're going to go over what a Galilean wedding kind of looks like, right? So the bridegroom approaches his hopeful bride in a very public setting, like a marketplace or something like that, and makes his proposal in front of everyone, right? So that everyone can hold them accountable to what's coming next, right? You're like kind of like you're engaged, don't be acting like that kind of thing. And so once that is established, once they are engaged, they go their separate ways, and the bridegroom, starts to build a home connected to his own father's home, right? So he builds onto the home that he grew up in, right, to build a home for him and his wife as an extension, right? All the while that's taking place, the bride goes and gathers materials to make her gown, right? And she grabs her bridesmaids and they prepare, right? This is a preparation for that impending day. And now the beautiful thing, very specific about a Galilean wedding, is they don't know the day or the hour that the wedding's going to take place. And it is all up to the father of the bridegroom. He's the one who goes, son, go get your bride. And it could be in the middle of the night. It could be 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't know, or doesn't, nobody knows, right? Only the Father knows. Things kind of clicking, right? So only the Father knows. So it could be in the middle of the night, and he says, son, go get your bride. And so it could be, midnight, and he goes and gets his bride. And so whenever they hear the procession, and the bride with her prepared gown and her bridesmaid, they sleep in the same room. Every night, it could be for a year, because you never know. You never know the day or the hour, right? And so the 10 bridesmaids, or however, it says 10 bridesmaids in the Bible, right? But however many the lady chooses, they're supposed to keep lamps with plenty of oil in them ready, so that whenever they hear the procession coming, right, they get woken up and they're like, oh, we got to go out with the lampstands and stand out and prepare the way, and then he's going to come in and get his bride, and they get lifted up on chairs, and then they go to the great hall, and the wedding feast begins, and all of the guests are supposed to be ready, right? So they hear, and that's why they make a loud noise when they're coming down the street with this procession, so that everybody's like, oh, it's time, and they get together, and they go and run, and they follow the procession into the wedding hall for the feast, and the doors are shut behind them. Now, if you were running a little bit late, that sucks for you, because you're not coming in. That's it, right? You were supposed to be prepared. So that's literally how a Galilean wedding comes. And Jesus used that because most of his disciples were from Galilee, right? And if you look into a lot of, whenever he starts, he's talking. You can see in basically all of his parables, he's talking to blue-collar guys, and so he makes a lot of parables about blue-collar situations, like sowing in the fields and, stuff like that, so that people can understand what he's talking about. These aren't, Rhodes Scholars he's talking to. And he doesn't want those either. Let's just put it that way. So in Matthew 24, verse 36 says, no one knows, however, when that day and hour will come. Neither the angels in heaven nor the Son. The Father alone knows. Verse 37, the coming of the Son of Man will be like what happened in the time of Noah. In the days before the flood, people ate and drank, men and women married, up to the very day Noah went into the boat. Yet they did not realize what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. That is how it will be when the Son of Man comes. Right? And so, and if you obviously you know a little bit about Noah's story, like God spoke to him and said, prepare this ark. Right? It had never rained before. And he's building this gigantic boat. And in the middle of the desert. So people are looking at him like he's a little bit crazy, kind of like Ezekiel laying on his side for 400 plus days, or Jeremiah burying his underwear, But God is telling Noah, like, something's coming, prepare. And out of faith, Noah did, right? He prepared. And, look who got caught with their pants down, right? But he's saying, like, all these people, they're just dancing, and instead of listening to what Noah had to say when they asked him, why are you building this big boat? They just called him crazy and ended up dead, right? Yeah. At that time, 2 men will be working in a field. One will be taken away, the other will be left behind, right? And that's kind of, if I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen, shows or movies in the past who have talked about the rapture or anything, and like, I've seen somewhere it'll show 2 people talking, and then all of a sudden, poof, like somebody disappears, and like their pile of clothes is left in the floor or something like that, and it's kind of that image, right? Because, it's whoever has prepared their heart, right? And what got me thinking a lot about like how the bride spends so much time preparing her gown, right? What she's clothed in, right? And we are the bride of Christ, right? He is our bridegroom who is coming home, right? And that's, again, what we're getting to. So starting in chapter 25 of Matthew, and it's of the 10 young women. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like this. Once there were 10 young women who took their oil lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and the other 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but did not take any extra oil with them, while the wise ones took their containers full of oil for their lamps. The bridegroom was late in coming, so they began to nod and fall asleep. Right? So again, any time of the day, right? So if you fall asleep, you better hope that you've got a stockpile so that you're ready whenever the time comes. It was already midnight when the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come and meet him." The 10 young women woke up and trimmed their lamps. Then the foolish ones said to the wise ones, "Let us have some of your oil, because our lamps are going out." "No, indeed," the wise ones answered. "There's not enough for you and for us. Go to the store and buy some for yourselves." So the foolish ones went off to buy some oil, and while they were gone, the bridegroom arrived. The 5 who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast, and the door was closed. Later the others arrived. "Sir, sir, let us in," they cried out. "Certainly not. I don't know you," the bridegroom answered. All right. So, and this is kind of a big thing. Like, we are not responsible for other people's preparation. Like, in a sense, yes, like I am responsible to share the gospel with you and to share this with you, right? But if you don't receive it, that's not on me. Those 5 foolish the young women, they were told, prepare, right? Get ready. But they chose to be foolish and didn't, right? It's the same thing as like Ezekiel 33. Like, if you're standing watch and you see an enemy coming, if you don't yell down to the village below, "Hey, there's an enemy coming," then if they are slaughtered, their blood is on your hands. If you do and they decide not to heed your words, it is on their own hands, right? So, are we going to do the things in order to prepare ourselves for the day when he comes back for us? Because and again, it could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years, it could be 1,000 years, I don't know, right? And yes, we can sit here and we can look at the signs that the word gives us, and we can go, okay, yeah, as the word says, it's like when a woman is in labor, right? And the contractions get closer and closer together. And Pam and Alex showed that video, the convergence, right? Where it's the converging of all these signs. It's not just like, oh, we had a really bad earthquake, and then 10 years later, another really bad earthquake. There's been, it's all of these signs in the natural world that are kind of converging together to kind of, give us a warning, like, hey, like, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's coming, all right? John 14, verse 1 through 4. Do not be worried and upset, Jesus told them. Believe in God and believe also in me. There are many rooms in my Father's house, and I am going to prepare a place for you. I would not tell you this if it were not so. And after I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to myself, so that you will be where I am. You know the way that leads to the place where I'm going. Right? So, and this is again like him referring to himself as the bridegroom. Right? I'm going to go to my Father's place and prepare a house in his kingdom for you. Right? And I will come back and take you as my bride to his kingdom, to our home that I have built for you. Mark 2. Starting in verse 18. On one occasion, the followers of John the Baptist and the Pharisees were fasting. Some people came to Jesus and asked him, why is it that the disciples of John the Baptist and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but yours do not? Jesus answers, do you expect the guests at a wedding party to go without food? Of course not. As long as the bridegroom is with them, they will not do that. But the day will come when the bridegroom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. So again, this is Jesus clearly saying, I'm the bridegroom, right? So, and again, going back to, my previous thought about, the bride spending so much time on what they're going to be clothed in when the bridegroom comes, right? And we're told, we spent so much time on the Sermon on the Mount, right? And those are very simple steps of Jesus telling us how we should be in day-to-day life, right? Clothe ourselves. Let's go to Galatians 3:27. You were baptized into union with Christ, and now you're clothed, so to speak, with the life of Christ himself. That's why it's so important for us to get the foundation of who Jesus Christ is. To know him, because we're supposed to clothe ourselves with him, in our union with him. Oh. Colossians 3:12 through 17. I love this. You are the people of God. He loved you and chose you for his own. So then you must clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Be tolerant with one another and forgive one another whenever any of you has a complaint against someone else. You must forgive one another just as the Lord has forgiven you. And to all these qualities add love, which binds all things together in perfect unity. The peace that Christ gives is to guide you in the decisions you make. For it is to this place that God has called you together in the one body. And be thankful. Christ's message in all its richness must live in your hearts. Teach and instruct one another with all wisdom, singing psalms, hymns, and sacred songs. Sing to God with thanksgiving in your hearts. Everything you do or say, then, should be done in the name of the Lord Jesus as you give thanks through him to God the Father. Ephesians 4:22 through 24. So get rid of your old self, which made you live as you used to. The old self that was being destroyed by its deceitful desires. Your hearts and minds must be made completely new, and you must put on the new self, which is created in God's likeness and reveals itself in the true life that is upright and holy. And so just like the bride who, once she is prepared, once she's made her gown, she wears it and she sleeps in that thing. She wears it all the time until, again, could be every night for a year, right? Until she hears the procession. It's time, he's coming, right? So what that means for us is we need to clothe ourselves in humility and compassion and continually cover ourselves with the mind of Christ. And that's what we clothe ourselves with every single day. Every single day. And there is no but in there. We are to be image bearers of Christ. We are to clothe ourselves with his image. Because we don't know the day or the hour. And I made myself giggle this morning because I could not for the life of me help but think how right Joe Dirt's mama was. Is this where you want to be when Jesus comes back? And how true is that statement, though? Like, it's funny and it's cute, right? But it's not wrong, right? Because if we're acting a certain way, ask yourself that question. Is this, if Jesus came back at this moment, would I be ashamed? If the answer is yes, you need to check yourself. And no, he's not seeking perfection, but if we are constantly in that frame of mind where we want to do better, that's what he's seeking. Someone who is just like David, a man after his own heart. Like David was a man who sinned time and time again, but continually repented and sought after God. That's what he wants. David clothed himself in humility consistently. Compassion whenever he could have killed Saul several times, but didn't. That was obedience too, because God told him not to. So this isn't just about, walking down an aisle and saying a prayer and I'm good, I'll see Jesus when he gets here, right? This is an everyday effort. Every day. We have to actually work towards it. We have to examine ourselves. We have to not look away when a mirror is held up to us, like the foolish man. Right? Kevin, will you pray us out?